I am Aida Nancy Sanchez. I am really known as Nancy Sanchez more than Aida Nancy or Aida Sanchez. So I am going to say that I am Nancy Sanchez. I was born in Santurce, Puerto Rico. The date, the 29th of November, 1932. My parents, my dearest mother, who was a tremendous influence in my life, her name was Rosalia Rivera. My father, who was a farmer, you might say, but actually in the business of dairy products and cattle and everything else. His name was Felipe Sanchez Osorio. I have quite a few brothers and sisters that are half sisters and half brothers, but nevertheless, I have two younger brothers that are my mother's son too, and one was a major, U.S. Air Force, retired now, Luis Felipe, and my youngest brother, who is a criminal lawyer in Puerto Rico, Felipe Benicio.
What were your parents like as people?
May I say that first I can tell you that my father was rather a wealthy man, but I can't remember vividly how he would write checks every Sunday. He would sit in the dining room table with this huge big book that have checks going parallel, and people were lining up. It included nuns, homeless people, everybody, and he would write checks to everybody, give money to everybody, and this was a routine of him every Sunday. He will do that. And so, I don't know, I learned a lot from them, especially the fact that in life, love, the meaning of life meant the beauty of the surroundings, to enjoy your environment, enjoy the animals, enjoy the wildlife, give as much as you can give and don't expect anything back, and yet be sure that regardless of the state of your life, that you offer all the love you can give. And so in my family, we were all huggers and kissers, and constantly we were told that I love you, I love you. I could be sitting reading a newspaper, and all of a sudden somebody could come back around me, give me a hug, and say, oh God, I love you so much. And of course, I have to learn in the military to kind of slow myself down, because I have a tendency to do just that to this date. And of course, in the military, you have to be very careful how you do that, But nevertheless, it was a very loving family, and I have deeply appreciated. Unfortunately, my father died when I was 12 years old, and we went from my mother especially, and my two younger brothers. I was the oldest. We went from riches to rags, and I had to really send money home, and that was actually one of the reasons I joined the Army, thinking I could continue my education and still send money home to help with my two younger brothers' education. And I am glad I did. Like I mentioned, one is a lawyer and the other one became a U.S. Air Force major. So anyway.
And your mother, what was she like as a person?
Oh, my mother was the most incredible human being I have ever met, really. She gave herself, even with everything that happened, whatever has happened, she was always mindful of other people's need. She would go to home to bathe some older lady that could not do it. As a matter of fact, I can say that when she died, I was left alone in the home where she lived, and I was crying out in the stairs. Came a gentleman all the way up, very happy. He just was coming up, and he said, is the lady of the house there? And I said, no. Well, what is it? And he said, well, I just want her to meet my wife and meet my kids. You see, I was a drug addict, and she asked her son, who's a lawyer, to help me get into a rehabilitation center, which I was aware that was hard to do in Puerto Rico. I got rehabilitated, and I met my wife there. We are very happily married. She has a job, I have a job, and we have 3 kids, and I want her to see this. So I said, I said, no, well, I did not know what, I got kind of, and so he said, you're not her daughter. And she said, yes, I am. You are the colonel that was in the army, and she was so proud of you, and she is. Where is she? And I said, she died. Well, you know what happened. The wife came because I cried with him. I was crying anyway. So, but that was an example of what my mother did. When he was a drug addict, she would give him food because he was homeless. And he would come upstairs and she would feed him. And it went on and on all her life like this. So that's what I can say about my mother and father, yes.
Rosalia, right?
Rosalia, yeah. They called her Talia. Talia. All the family. She was the matriarchal, you might say, of the whole family.
Was your family religious?
My family was religious in one sense, in that sense, but being a religious of going to church, I think I became more religious because I went to St. Mary of the Woods College in Indiana, where it's a Catholic school, and the reason why I went there, that the sisters there were kind enough to ask to see if we could win a scholarship in Puerto Rico for anyone in Puerto Rico who would write an essay in logic. And I wrote it, and it was a competition between all high schools. And I happened to just be lucky enough, our Lord was good enough to me that I won it. And my mother says, this is your opportunity, you go. So here I was, 14 years old, alone, heading to college.
What did you think of Indiana?
Oh, you know, I am glad you're asking that because I want to be sure that in my life, if anything is written, I want to thank the Sisters of Providence. They did an incredible job with me, really. How could I say, in molding me to a life that I would never have realized was going to be the way it was. And there was a tremendous amount of influence in my life, even in Vietnam, that came from my education from St. Mary of the Woods College. So I do want to thank the sisters. It was incredible. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you just one thing. I never forget, we had a retreat. Let me just tell you that. We had a retreat in college. We had them every year. It was, and we could not talk. It was 3 days of meditation and so on. And of course, you know, at your age, and here I was so young, I could not help but talk to somebody, you see. And one of the girls, at that time, we could not get any type of mail except something of emergency. And so one of the girls in an emergency box received a box of chocolate. And so we hid into a closet. And she invited all of us with little paper telling us, come to my room, I will close the closet and we'll eat the chocolates. So we got into there, and of course I think one of the sisters who was seeing us from Leffer Hall, one of the, where we live, one of the buildings that we live in, was watching all this going on. So she kept an eye on us, and in the evening, she held her rosary up. It was a rosary that they had hanging by the side of their habit, you might say, and we didn't hear her because the rosary would have kind of tell that she was coming. It kept cracking, you know. So when we got there, when she got there and opened the closet door there, we were all having a ball, jiggling and eating chocolate. And what I'm saying is, she said, you know, you're going to have, they call it, I forgot the name because it's been so long, but in other words, they would not let us out of campus. We had Wednesday where we could go out of campus to Terre Haute, Indiana to shop. This time, that was one of the punishment. You are not going out this time, but I need you in my office. So we went to the office, and she sat there and she said, you know, someday in your life, when you graduate from college, you're going to remember that these opportunities of growing spiritually are going to be far in between your daily activities. Chocolates are going to be everywhere. But your inner self, growing inwardly, is not going to be something you're going to be thinking about, and it's a very important part of your life. So please, take opportunity that we're giving it to you, for you to learn that and for you to mature. Well, would you believe that she was right? When I went to Vietnam, there was a lot of chocolate, and there was no spirituality whatsoever there for us to hang on. And to top it all off, our Catholic priest went berserk, and they had to pull him out of the 95th evac. He just could not make it, and finally, he died in Walter Reed. So I thought of the sisters, and I said to myself, isn't this the truth? Now here, I was now seeking, wanting very badly to have that inner feeling of peace. And yet there were all the box of chocolate sent by all the school children, everybody, a lot of stuff. Cookies, you mentioned what we didn't get, even socks. So, yeah.
Did you, let's see, you would have been, growing up, I guess, during the World War II years in Indiana.
Yeah, no, well, wait a minute, no, because when World War II,
32 plus 14.
I don't know, I remember when FDR died that I was in Puerto Rico, and I was young, I was in my, not in my teens, well, I don't know, for teen is teen,
Yeah.
and I think that, I don't know, I don't remember. I think I remember, I have one brother, half-brother, who was in World War II, and he was a prisoner of war of the Japanese, and Mike, and I remember that he, for a long time, he was in England with amnesia, and then finally found out who he was, and they brought him back there. But I do remember how the soldiers were arriving from World War II. They used to come in trucks or buses, and we never saw our brother. But that's now that you say that, but I was in Puerto Rico then, not in college.
Okay.
So,
Well, when did you graduate from college?
1952.
1952.
Yeah.
And,
A BS degree in biology and chemistry.
wow, that's really incredible.
Mm.
So did you have any particular dreams or goals upon your graduation?
Well, I did through the physical education teacher in college. She was Catherine Young. She was the one who got me got me very interested in the Army Physical Therapy School program. And she said, why don't you apply for it? It could happen that they might let you be. I have to say that I was good in my college years in terms of grades and all that, and so they did accept me, and they waived the age. And so this is how I got to know the Army, through my phys ed teacher.
Okay.
And I joined the Army right after I graduated.
Okay.
I was sworn in the Army in August, and in September I was on my way to start physical therapy school.
So what were the educational requirements for physical therapists?
The first thing is, and always has been in the Army, is that you have to have a Bachelor of Science degree with the appropriate science courses that will be able, that will jive with your physical therapy education. So that was the main thing. And of course they also they want people who had certain grade, how would you say? Grade point. In other words, you had to be in the higher category when you graduated from your Bachelor of Science degree, because they were very choosy. We were only 20 in our class. So, and always have been.
So during the Korean conflict, you went on over to Fort Sam Houston.
Right.
Tell me about that experience.
And then, of course, I was in the Army PT school. We graduated. I did my internship, or whatever, if it's called clinical internship, in Brooke Army Medical Center. And, it's an interesting thing. I don't know whether I should say this or not, but it was a time when the Army didn't look too much on the idea of dating too much, because they wanted to emphasize so much that you graduate and get the courses, because they were spending that much money on you, and they thought that dating guys and all that was going to interfere with going to school, or not going to school, but doing your homework. And so they kept an eye on you constantly on that. It was interesting, you know. And so it was difficult to date. You had to do it in a kind of a secretive way. Go over there or meet the guy over there in San Antonio, not at Los Angeles. It was funny, very funny.
Go ahead.
No, what I mean is thinking that perhaps that was the way that they knew everybody was going to graduate. But what I'm saying is, it was a fascinating experience, like it was all over my Army career. It had its ups and downs, like everything. Life is not perfect. And I did have my great stresses in the Army. As a matter of fact, most of us wanted to get out, would get out sometimes and say, oh, no, I can't take this, I'm going to get out. And yet you stick with it. And, you know, I was 25 years, almost close to it.
Young, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty young.
Yeah.
So from Brooke Army Medical Center, you went on to
Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
And that was interesting enough, that was the Center for Chest Surgery at that time in the Army. They did the chest surgery for tuberculosis, any type of lung problems. That was the center where they would go. And one of the things that is interesting also, I have to tell you, is that we met, all of us in our school. General Eisenhower came to visit us, the 20 of us, and we talked. And you know, some years later, after I graduated, there he is in Denver, Colorado, coming to visit one of the patients. It was a colonel who was with him in D-Day.
Oh, really?
And it was a Saturday, and I was the one on duty. So we met again, and do you know that gentleman, and by that time he was the President of the United States. Would you believe if I tell you that gentleman remembered me, that general remembered me when we were, the 20 of us sitting talking to, and he said, oh, I know you. You were the physical therapy student at Sam Houston, and you are from Puerto Rico, aren't you? All of that, I said, yes, sir, yes, sir. I was so surprised. Can you imagine all what he had gone through, election campaigns, all of that thing.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I never will forget that. So he said to me, listen, I'll be talking, but I got to tell you something. You know, his wife, mother, lived in Denver. Mamie Eisenhower's mother, that's how they came to visit. And what it was so funny is that he used to cook a stew that he loved to cook at his mother-in-law place. So he said, I'm going to send you a pot of a stew so that you taste my stew. So I said, fine, that will be, oh, thank you so much. So comes this secret agent, the others told her about a day or two later, it was then weekday, with the pot of a stew. But what happened? The word went all over the physical therapy clinic that the General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, have actually cooked that stew. And the pot, I wanted to keep the pot, but my chief said, no, you're not the chief of this clinic, I am keeping this pot. You can taste it, but this is my pot. But I said, but this was not even, I would have loved to have kept that pot. No? I wonder what happened to the pot. But you know, I would have loved to, because that was really something.
I think it belonged to you.
Yeah.
But, well, that's a great story. And tell me about the patients that you were treating while you were at Fitzsimmons. Were they coming back from Korea?
A lot of them came from Korea, a lot of them came from everywhere, because it was a specialty lung and tuberculosis. Nowadays, you know, chest surgery has changed a lot, but at that time they did a lot of thoracoplasties, thoracotomies. The surgery, of course, have been completely changed. So surgery has changed, like medicine has changed a lot since then. But we did that, and they came from everywhere, really.
And then you went on to Letterman, correct?
I went on to Fitzsimmons. No, I am sorry that I did not put it in correct. I got out of the Army then for 2 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I got out of the Army because I thought I needed to get out. I didn't want to stay. That's what I thought. And so the thing is that then that's where I met Myrna, VA Hospital in Hines, Illinois. Then I went to work in the Department of Health in Puerto Rico. I was the director for the Children's Bureau Rehabilitation Programs in Puerto Rico. And what happened then is when I was in the midst of doing that, I got a nice little letter from the Department of Defense telling me that the Korean War was in, and in a very nice way say, would I mind coming back into the active duty? And of course
People to rehabilitate.
yeah, and not only that, it was a nice letter, but I can sense that what they were telling me, you need to come back. So I joined the Army back again, and my first station was where? Oh my God, where did I go? I think I went from, let me see. You see, when I left Fitzsimmons, I went to Rodriguez Army Hospital, to Rodriguez, because that was I had to wait for me to receive all the papers, and so meanwhile I worked there. Then I was a civilian, and then I stayed in Puerto Rico, and that's where I became a director for the Department of Health, Children's Bureau. But let me say, rehabilitation program, by the way, but let me say that after that I went back to Brooke Army Medical Center. That's where I went and worked at the burn unit, which they're very famous for. Yes, and worked at the burn unit. Then after that, I went to Hawaii, I went to Fort Bragg. And after Fort Bragg, I already returned, I went from Puerto Rico to Brooke Army Medical Center, served my time there a year or two, I can not recall, but then I went into Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and from Fort Bragg, I ended up in Letterman. Oh my goodness, I forgot something. I was the one who established the Andrew Rader Clinic here in Arlington, Virginia. So what did I do?
This is before Vietnam.
This is before Vietnam. You see, I know what had happened. Now it comes to me. From Fort Bragg, I went to Arlington, to here, Fort Myer, where I established the physical therapy clinic there. From the physical therapy clinic, after establishing it, the Army sent me to graduate school. And I went then to UNC, and I did some work between Duke and UNC because it was part of my master's, Duke University. And then after that, I went to, I went to Letterman. No, what was it? Triplet, you know. No, wait, excuse me. After I graduated from UNC, Chapel Hill, they sent me to Letterman Medical Center in San Francisco to be the director for all the clinical affiliations of the students, physical therapy students that came to do clinical affiliations in the Army, to the Letterman, from Stanford University, Loma Linda University, Berkeley, University of Los Angeles, California, all of those. And I was the one who directed their program. I was the one who was in charge, better say, if you want to call it that way, in charge of all their programs at Letterman. That's what I did. Then after that, I went to Hawaii and spent a year there before I got my little notice that I was heading to Vietnam.
Before we go on to the Vietnam portion, tell me about the establishment of the Andrew Rader Clinic, and was this the first time were they starting to take physical therapy seriously, maybe?
Well, let me tell you what, well, first of all, there was a sergeant there that was doing something. And what she was doing at the time that I was there, before I got there, was that she was something like, I guess you might say, let me put it this way, the generals from the Pentagon would come at noontime and she would give them massage and all that. in a very, there was no such thing as the Andrew Rader Clinic yet. It was just a little place where the generals would come, they get treated, and if they had some muscle spasm, the sergeant would give them a massage. They loved it. They loved it. When I came, I needed to change that, you know. Now, can you imagine me dealing with 4-star general and 3-star generals who were very much pampered by this tremendous, wonderful feeling of having this massage, and all of a sudden I was trying to establish a physical therapy clinic. Well, and by the way, Andrew Rader Clinic was an extension, you might say it was attached to, or the main person in charge of the persons, the CEOs of Andrew Rader Clinic, other than the CEO that was in Andrew Rader Clinic, came from Walter Reed. Directions were coming from Walter Reed, you know. So the whole thing is, what I'm saying is that the generals, when I got there and I started changing, they were really very, very, very disgusted. Because I just told them, you know, we just don't give this massage like this. We are going to try to stop it. And they just could not understand that. And I, in a sense, I tried to explain it. Well, one of them reported me to Walter Reed, saying, you know, this captain, I was a captain then, he's just doing, it's a mess and it's a problem, and the reason is because she doesn't seem to want to do what the sergeant did for us, that was so good. But the chief PT at Walter Reed, who seemed to, thank God, she supported me nicely, very nicely, I have to say, even though she was so strict, tried to explain to the general, because of course the complaints went to the general of Walter Reed, the CEO of Walter Reed, about the fact that I wasn't doing what I should be doing, was very supportive, and she stuck her neck out for me too, and said, look, she needs to establish this clinic, and it is the only ways if you let her, and she needs to. So finally, when I established the clinic, and they came back for problems of neck and back problems and all kinds of other problems, you never believe it if I tell you that one of the greatest compliments that I received is that the chief of the staff in the Pentagon sent me a bouquet of red roses with a thank you note. Thank you. You please keep up the good work. After being in your clinic, I'm very proud that you are there, and I'm very proud that you're part of us. And just keep the good work, and the best to you, General, I forgot, it started with a W, but anyway, all of that. And then after that, they all just start coming, and I owe it to one of the generals that I was able to get to graduate school. He said, what would you like us to do to help you? You know, they were really very pleased. So,
by the way, who was Andrew Rader?
Andrew Rader Clinic, I don't know who was, I'm sorry. I almost say he was a colonel, and I almost say that he might have been a medical person. But you know, I hate to say that I might be wrong, but you can check on that because I'm not so sure. But to this day, it is here. It's in Fort Myers, Andrew Rader Army Clinic. And as a matter of fact, I like to visit. I haven't been there since I got out of there, and so, you know, and by the way, we had incredible, tremendous, good volunteers. Thank God to them that will help me in the clinic, such as Catherine Morsi and others. Oh, I have to thank them from the deepest part of my heart. They were angels. We needed it at a time when we were short of personnel. They helped with telephones, they helped with other things. I taught them certain things they could do for me while we were all busy, because the clinic started to get busy, and of course one of our main things was to keep the old guard fit. They used to have a lot of problems with sprains, ankle sprains, you know, the old guard, with the ones that are always marching and all that. They had a lot of strain problems, and we became it. We were the ones who took care of them, you see.
And how long, and then you went, okay, so then you were sent to Duke, and then to the Letterman, where you were the
No, to UNC.
Duke and UNC.
No, I would say UNC and Duke, because UNC, I went to Duke just because I needed to do part of my thesis in it, but I am UNC, Chapel Hill, really.
So after your 1 year in Hawaii, you get your little letter. And at this, do you remember what year that would have been?
Oh, wow.
Because Army medical buildup in Vietnam was completed.
That year, where I was, it was 1970.
1970. Okay.
I think it was 1970. Yes, it was got to be 1970.
And had you had any desire to go overseas? Had you had any?
I did say that I would volunteer if it was needed to go to Vietnam.
Okay.
But I did not expect it to be so fast. And the reason why I needed to come back is because another PT was not in the 95th Iraq. I was the first one attached there, but she was in Vietnam, in Saigon, what is now Ho Chi Minh something or other. I don't know what the name of, but she was at the 95th Replacement Center, and there was a hospital, more of a bigger hospital. It was an evac hospital that a lot of people ended up coming from the 95th evac into that bigger hospital to be shipped out. Sometimes they were shipped out from the 95th evac directly, but it was impossible because of aircraft problem, anti-aircraft problem. So Rita was in there, and what I'm saying is I went to take her place, but then they needed a PT. Finally, they decided they needed a PT in an evac hospital, and I ended up all the way to Da Nang, right below Monkey Mountain. And I was the first PT that went to the evac hospital. And I want you to know that the 95th evac was not just established in Vietnam. This is an old hospital that has been going on since World War II. The 95th evac has a history of its own. It was not just the 95th evac Vietnam. It was in World War I and World War II and all that, and it's a hospital that always has been there behind the combat zone or in front of it.
Proud to be with.
So I was very proud to be it, and I was very proud to say that I was the first of my kind to be assigned to it. Now, like I said, there were other PTs who have been in Vietnam before, but not in that kind of capacity.
Well, tell me about the day you arrived. Do you remember?
Well, let me, that's something. The first thing I have to tell you is that we were asked to go just around Christmas. It was the 24th of December. I remember that. We ended up first in the Philippine Islands. And there, you never believe that at 4 o'clock in the morning, when we arrived there, here is a whole family, 2 or 3 group of family with kids, with cookies and all that, military people that were stationed in the Philippines with their family at that time of the morning singing Christmas carols to us, with cookies and beverages for us to go on our way to Vietnam. You know, can you imagine that? This is the things that nobody can imagine, you know.
Yeah.
But can you imagine that? And the kids were young kids, all dressed up and all that. And so they will entertain us while we wait for the big tanker. I don't know why I call it a tanker. It was one of those planes that open up downward. You go in there, and the seats were all lining up there. The time that I went, I was the only woman in that plane. There were all the soldiers were there, and I remember vividly how one of them was so concerned. He just got married, and he said, you know, this is my wedding band, and he wanted some reassurance, and he said to me, you know, do you think I want to come back alive? You think? Imagine, we were heading to Vietnam, and I just, you know, that was the first time I started getting a little, oh my God. And so he said, you think I will come back alive when you think? I said, of course you are going to come back alive. Oh, certainly. No, she said, well, I just want so badly. I just got married, you know. Oh. Well, anyway, would you believe that I took a picture of him there, not there, and I kept wondering all the time I spent the 95th evac, because we were the first one to receive the bad wounded after flu that was closed. They have little hospitals all over. The 65th Division had some, but there were small clinic. This was a hospital where they did surgery and all that, and a lot of the more bad ones, they would go there anyway. So I kept looking. I said, oh my God, please, let me hope that, and I never saw him, so I hope with all my heart that poor boy did come back to see to his wife, and I just hope I don't know, but that is the thing. When we went to we ended up in Long Bean. In Long Bean. Long Bean, this is where the 95th Replacement Center was called, and that's where everybody was processed. Well, when I got there was a little barrack for nurses, but I was the only one. Christmas time, it was the 25th of December, and then a priest, let's just say a priest usually was a Catholic priest because he could cater to everybody, you know. So we went up the hill, and there, me and a whole bunch of GIs, we were hearing the Mass, and I remember vividly that one guy decided to sing, and he sang just gorgeous. I said, my God, and he started singing Silent Night and all that, and of course we all followed through and all that. I said, oh my goodness. So the next thing I know is that they needed to close the army, the nurses were, because there was no woman except me, and they put me in a hooch, in a place where every man, where they all, you know, those cots or whatever beds that are 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, and then they put a white kind of curtains in the last bunker over there, and I was the only one then, but all the other guys were all in their shorts for that, and of course they closed it. I was inside there. Well, I always remember that they felt that I needed to put an MP next to serve God in there with me, and so, but what happened? There was no MP. Well, there were not that many guys, and so the colonel decided that he'll be the MP. So he comes in, here he's all dressed up, and he comes in there with his rifle, standing there, and of course the poor guys, every time he passed by, they needed to get up and get in attention, and it was the funniest thing. When I used to go to the bathroom or the latrine, he had to follow. It was just a very uncomfortable but funny situation. Very funny situation. We finally got we went our way. I ended up at the 95th Evac, which was assigned to me. Being as I was the only AMSC, there was a problem because, and then the rank, and of course the nurses have been spread all over. They were, of course, the ANCs were there. And for me to find a hooch, it was a problem because they just didn't know what to do then, you know. So they finally gave me a hooch, and there was a hooch there, and I spent my life in that hooch for a little bit over a year. The reason is because I also had and I have to say the privilege, to me that was a privilege, that during my tour of duty in Vietnam, I was asked to go to Cambodia to see the president of Cambodia, Lon Nol, President Lon Nol of Cambodia. The reason for that is that it happened to be that he has been treated at Tripler, he then wife when I was there, and Dr. Matterson, who was the physical medicine doctor there, and we really worked hard on it, and he wanted me to be the PT to go and see President Lon Nol. So I have to tell you that, of course, I was told very secretly, you're going to be out of Vietnam, you have some civilian clothes, you have to go in civilian clothes, but nobody will tell me where I was going because it was top secret, mind you, top secret. All I know is that all of a sudden I meet Colonel Manchester. Colonel Manchester was the chief of all the dietitians in the Army, but she has retired, but the Army have asked her to go to be consultant in Vietnam for food and all that. And so she was coming in some little plane, well actually it was a helicopter. No, we went in a plane and I went in a helicopter, and she said, I know where you're going, but I can't tell you where you're going. I said, but my God, where is, I was told that, but it's okay, you just stick there, you know. So I ended up in Saigon, where everybody ended up, and I talked the general, which was a wonderful man and a very fine officer, and he had all these big health records waiting for me, and he said, you're going to go to see President Lon Nol of Cambodia, because he has suffered a stroke, as you know him, and I said, oh my goodness, of course. And so he said, you sit there, and they enclosed me in a glass door, in a glass, for me to read all those records, and of course I was glad I did. His plane, he had a little plane, was the one who transported me to Cambodia, Phnom Penh, and there, I have to tell you, that was fascinating. I was assigned, President Lono had assigned me 7 secret servers. They all slept. First of all, they gave me this incredible, gorgeous room, like a queen's room, in the best hotel in town. It was all very beautiful furniture there, with lots of food, even wine was put in there, and all that, of course. And then here, when I opened the door, all these people, you know, those beach type of chairs that you use, that you stretch out, I don't know how you call them. Like, not a hammock, no, they are lounge chairs, like with aluminum type of, they all slept there, and I said, oh my God, I wasn't told this, and I said, why are you there? They didn't speak English too well, but they spoke French, and this is what we spoke at home, French and Spanish. I forgot to say that. My father liked to speak French, and my mother, well, anyway, the end of the story is that I was able to speak some French, and a mixture between French and a little bit of the English that they knew. We got along, and then they told me who they were, more or less. So I go down to have my breakfast, and there were 2 American men. And I did not even bother to ask, and they did not, I don't know why they did not introduce themselves, I don't know. But I noticed they were there every day that I would go there. The third day I go, I finally went to them, I said, you know, do you stay here? And then they said, Major Sanchez, we are secret agents. This is Colonel so-and-so, I am Major so-and-so, I don't remember the names, but we are asked that we are protecting you. Everything you need, please tell us, and any money you need, just please tell us, but that you need to be quiet about it. And I found out later is that there was so much communist infiltration that they were afraid that they will kill me if they find out that I was going to try to improve the health or do something better for the president. And they didn't know who they were. It was just like the terrorists matters what you don't know, so it was better to stay quiet so that I do my job and not being exposed to any type of target or being killed. And so, you know, I did not know all of that, but the lieutenant colonel, the colonel told me that, and he said, so this is why we don't approach you. We'll sit here, you have your breakfast, but we'll leave with you. We're going to be leaving with you as you have seen us doing that. Well, but the problem is they were not allowed in the palace. They were not allowed in the compound. I was the only one. So what do you know, if the ambassador of the United States in Cambodia, one day the colonel come to me and said, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning today, we're going to pick you up in the ambassador's car, and the ambassador needs to talk to you at that time of the night. So I said, oh my God. So I go to the embassy, and here he's sitting with other group of people, some guys there, and he have this big pictures of the cabinet of the president. And he said, and they said, look, you already went to the palace, you already have seen the president. Could you tell us if you have seen any, just point at the pictures, at the people that you have seen there. Well, of course, I was so involved in treating General Renault that I wasn't looking at all the people. It's true that, believe it or not, for some reason or other, all of them were there, including the Secretary of Health, what is comparatively speaking, the Secretary of Health, Education and Welfare, who became the one who became like the, what do you call it, not the intermediary, but the liaison between me and the president and all that, and he was with me. Wonderful family, tremendous people, tremendous. Well, anyway, so when I went there, I said, but my God, I wasn't looking at all these people. So he was very tense. The ambassador was, he said, look, please, look, Major Sanchez, you are the only one who can get it. But he was really very new. You're the only one who can get in that palace, and it's very extremely important for our United States government to know if these people are there and who are they, and you got to help us. I said, excuse me, please, wait a minute. I was sent here to treat the president of Cambodia. Now, nobody ever told me that I was going to be sort of like a spy. I wasn't told. Please, it's just that you are the only one allowed there. So please, this is extremely important for our government. So I said, oh my goodness, now, to be doing some techniques that I had to do with him, PNF, all kinds of things I was doing with him as a physical therapist, and to be looking with all these people who were intense in what I was doing, by the way, was something else. But you see, I'm very religious in my ways. I think God was there with me, because somehow or other I was able to just keep looking, and I kept doing the things with him and moving him around, and I kept looking, and at 2 o'clock the next day, I go there and I said, okay, I can tell you, he was here, he was there. At the beginning, of course, it was hard because all of them are almost a little Oriental, and everybody that looks like this to me, it's hard to determine, But then, by the time I got there, I said, okay, this one, that one. They all stood up. Oh my God, communist infiltration. We got to start packing. And I said, wait a minute, you're not leaving me behind here. Now I'm going to, but they said, oh my God, this is impossible. So the ambassador got tremendously excited. All was a mess. Everybody started getting boxes and doing that. And I said, oh my God. So I went back to President Lono. And at that time, he was sort of ready to start walking. So I told the doctor, which by the way was educated in England, that I needed to get a cane, and he said, oh, sure, we'll find a cane, we'll just find it somehow, we'll find it. Well, I don't know how they announced it, but by the next week that I came, there was a room with canes coming from every nation of the world, including the United States of America. And they all have been, the president have asked them to hang them in the ceiling so that I could pick the one that I thought was the best for him. So I did not know that. By the time I got there, the doctor brought me, and he said, now here are all the canes. I said, how? What? He said, well, we just said it, and they all came from France, the Philippines, everywhere, even Australia. You never believe this. And I said to myself, this is what is secret. Imagine that, secret. Newsweek have already wrote about it, and wrote about all this thing, the magazine. And here I was supposed to be secretly doing this thing. Well, anyway, so I said to myself, well, dear Lord, you better tell me, how could I do this? What am I going to do looking at all this game? So I said to the president, I said, sir, which cane of these canes do you like the best? Which one? Have you seen them all? He said, oh, they brought it to me one by one. And I said, by the way, he spoke a little English and French more than English. So he said, oh, you know the one I really like the best? The French. Well, it was a magnificent cane. Oh my God. I think some of it was a metal cane, elaborate cane. And I got somebody to fit it for him, and he was so proud of that cane. Well, the next thing I tell the doctor is, we're going to take him to the garden of the palace, so that he start trying some of the, and so we did. I even have pictures of that. In 1 or 3 minutes that I said that, don't ask me, all of Cambodia was by the gate to see their president. I don't understand that. It's beyond me, but I have never seen the likes of that. It was a multitude. because they haven't seen him, they loved him very much. And the soldiers went, wah, 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 wah. And I said, and here I am holding him up, and he was just going with his cane. I had to grab him, and the doctor did too, with his cane going. Oh my God. I said, how could this be? It was this morning that I decided to do this, and by that time, I'm telling you, in Phnom Penh, you could hardly see. It was just a sea of people.
I wonder, so how long did you continue to do this?
For the year that I was, a little bit over the year, I had to come back. And the last time that I went back, by the way, the President Lono was one of those people that I never forget. Now there he was a Buddhist. I think either he was a Muslim or a Buddhist. He had a tremendous faith that he knew he was going to get better and he was going to go on with his life. And my golly, you know, with such a severe stroke that he had, he really did. And I think it was the incredible character and the faith, the spiritual faith, it shows all over him. How incredible that man was, I just never forget. And the thing is, one of the things he did was that he got some Chinese people from China to come to work with me because he wanted some acupuncture. And he felt that with acupuncture and what I was doing, that was it. And so the next time I went here was a Chinese doctor ready to do it, but he wanted to do it while I was moving the arm or doing whatever I was doing, and he would put the acupuncture in areas where, and you know, I was completely fascinated because I knew about acupuncture, but not so close. And he came all the way from China to do this with me. And so the experience I had was incredible. And the last time I was there, General Bernstein, that was the name of the general, came with me in his plane, and he wanted to see, he was a doctor, by the way. He was the commanding officer of all of us medical field in Vietnam at that time. And he came with me to see how things were doing and all that, and they gave us a beautiful dinner at the palace. I remember that beautifully, in which we were honored, and the secretary of the doctor in charge of the secretary, the state of education, the same thing as in here, you know, in comparatively speaking, as in the States, was very kind, and we sat there, and it was a beautiful, very beautiful reception. I shall remember and never forget that wine. I asked the general, do you recognize that one? He said, I do, but don't even worry about buying it. It's in one of those cellars that is below. But oh my heavens, it was just fantastic.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is really hard to believe that you were in those places at those times.
All those
But
time.
let's go back to Renee and the 95th and tell me a little bit more. Why don't you tell me, I saw some pictures.
Yeah.
Tell me about the good times, the camaraderie. What about your interaction with them?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that we did have very good camaraderie, and it's true that between, I don't put, you know, let me ask you a question. Wait a minute. I just want to ask you a question without meaning. Now you're going to tell me whether it's right to say or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know whether you...
I might check and see if we need more tape.
Well, you know, let me say to you that one beautiful part of the Black Power, and I want to bring that out because I always shall remember that, is that we had civilian Americans, the Corps, civilian organization to helping the Vietnamese dealing with the farming and all that, and they were all American people, you know, and one of them fell deeply in love, very deeply in love with a Vietnamese lady. He really was in love with her. And unfortunately, one day when he went to visit her, she was in bed with another gentleman, another man. And what happened is that he was so, you know, war does a lot of things even to civilians. And he got a gun and shot the man, and he tried to kill himself. He didn't kill her or anything, but he tried to kill himself, and he put the gun right through there, and he didn't kill himself, but he became blind. The bullet went right through some way, it wasn't even in his brain that when it was something miraculous in a sense. But he went blind, and then he also have hurt his arm, and I was treating him. But then because of my experience when I got out of the Army the first time, which I worked at the Veterans Administration Hospital at Hines, and I work with blind patients, I have learned the cane technique in the Veterans Administration. So I start telling the 95th evac, everybody, whoever finds a cane, please let me have one. I would like to teach our civilian blind, because he was with us, he was being taken care there, even though he was civilian. I need to teach him the cane technique for the blind, and I need a cane. Well, comes this black man with his power. He has actually carved a piece of wood with the hand. He made it, and he has painted, don't ask me, I think it was with ink, black ink, the black power of the hand. And then he came to me and he said, do you think this could help? And I said, oh, I noticed that it was kind of wide there. Yeah, that certainly will help. Do you mind if I just give it a try? And if so, the only problem is if he does give it a try, he needs it. He said, oh, that's fine, no problem. No. So I gave it to the white guy, and I started teaching him to do the cane. Of course, he felt it. He said, isn't that funny? It doesn't have a hole, but it got kind of hand. And I said, well, it's a handle. Just hold it there. I don't know. So I taught him the cane technique, and then he started walking, everywhere with it, and he was so great. He was so grateful. And so finally, one day I said, I think you need to thank the person who gave me that cane. And he said, and then he started rubbing it again. He said, you know something, Major Sanchez, is he a black man? I said, yes, he is. And he made that cane. He said, oh my God, he started kind of giggling. He said, oh, the black thing. And I said, yeah, but he said, oh, I'd love to meet him. Well, would you believe that then he met, they hugged, and they became the best friends. The black man will take him everywhere, with his cane, and then of course he had built himself another one of those. I don't know where they found it, but they became extremely close, very close. He came to visit when he was being treated. He will take him there, bring him over, all of that. And I said, just to show you. So that was one time that black power cane was a tremendous great help to rehabilitate somebody, So that's something nice to know. But let me say that
while we're talking about this issue, let me read this to you.
Yeah.
This is a letter of January 1970. I want you to elaborate a little bit on this statement. I think you've done a good job so far, but you said, I think few people recognize this. Well, I think that few people recognize that this was happening in Vietnam as well as in the United States. You said, I'm glad I'm carrying a knife around here. It's a good excuse to carry a weapon. After all, with this black power movement going on around here, this is a very serious problem. Who knows if I'll have to use it? What happened to make you so aware of this movement, and you've already explained what you saw and witnessed, but maybe you could comment a little bit more on. I can always cut this out. I can go.
Let me tell you. I think we were in Vietnam at the time that the black people were trying to show people that they were human beings and that they really deserve better treatment, if that is the way we can say it. And it was a time that Vietnam just was a perfect place where they could just show this power. I could say that. Better say than a perfect place. It was an opportunity, better say, for a reform. And it was an opportunity for them to come out into the news and say, God, this is their really. But they were very negative. These were very young black people who just wanted to tell the world that they were just as good as white, and just like for the sake of Muslim, these horrible people are decapitating head and all that. The black people went the wrong way to show that they were also part of society, which was horrendous because they did things that should not have been. But other times it was the fact that they greeted each other with this incredible amount of ha ha ha, and then all these different signs of touching and going like this, and they go like that. I don't know the ritual. It was like a ritual that they did. But but they also were very against any type of discipline. They would not want to wear the uniform the way they wear it. They would rip up their pants. They would use their braids down here. They would not use a hat. When one of our generals came to the compound to visit us, they did not have even the courtesy, I could say, to treat him what he was, and the general ignored it because he figured out that there is no sense at this time, with the tremendous amount of serious problems that were covering us, especially the wounded. I was coming 65, 75 people a day, coming down in these helicopters that one of the nurses call it like locusts down the hill. We could not be worried about this this black power trying to show who they were when there were more important, extremely more important things to do, and the general did a tremendous job on that. So it just went on through the chow lines, through anything that they could do to impose themselves, I could say. So it was a very much of a hard times. I think that was the era when the Black Power movement came into the picture around the Martin Luther King times and so on. So,
well, let's talk about something a little more upbeat. How about we could talk about, did you witness any celebrity visits?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about
Well, the first thing is I have to say that I was one of those that loved and enjoyed thoroughly the Bob Hope show. We did that, though. He didn't come to Da Nang, of course. He was down in the boondock. But when we were going, we stayed in Da Nang, in Long Bean, going to Da Nang at the time when I told you there was the Christmas service religion. He gave us a show there. And this lady, what is her name, for heaven's sakes, that actually became... Lucy Bold, no, but what is the name of that lady that is a comedian? Oh my goodness, that one of the units declared her, they gave her an honorary title of a colonel. Oh, I can see her so vividly. Phyllis Diller. Yeah, Phyllis Diller, that's it. Yeah, Phyllis Diller, right. Well, she was incredible. And we had Bob Hope, Phyllis Diller, and some other actors and actresses that I just can't remember them all, really, it's been a long time. But it was a wonderful show, and of course Bob Hope himself was a showman, and we all loved him, and it was a nice uplift. Yes, very much so. Then we were in Da Nang, a Filipino orchestra from the Philippine Islands used to come, and I don't ask me how they got there, because I never will know, used to come and entertain us for us to dance, dancing in what the so-called quotation officer club. And we did have that, and they would bring very lovely looking ladies, and that some of us ladies that were there and the nurses would say, why doesn't they bring also very good looking men? And one guy heard her saying that, and he said, don't you think we're all good looking? How many male men you want to see? Look at me. Why don't they need to? No, the ladies. And then the nurse would say, well, how about us? All those ladies are ladies. Don't you think we are pretty too? Some of us are pretty. Anyway, would you believe that right after that there was a dust-off? We had to quit. The orchestra had to go underneath. They were told to go underneath there. And that is one of those dust-off that I will never forget, because it was the most, here is one young man, very handsome young man, with his stomach split open. And yet, for some particular reason, with all the hemorrhage and everything, he was conscious, very conscious. And I could remember this lieutenant that just, very pretty lieutenant, a very young little lieutenant, nurse. And she just came back from basic training directly to Vietnam, and I felt kind of bad. I said, poor thing, you know, to just finish basic training, they didn't even get a chance to be here, to just, no, Clark, there you are. And she went to him. She was part of the triage. They call it triage. And when he saw her, and I was there because I was putting morphine to others and helping, I had to count sometimes head and arms to put them in the right position, the bodies, white bodies with heads and all that. That's when sometimes you could not open the casket, because not always was it feasible to put arms and legs, because their dog tags were blown out. But you could not put, you know, they all coming back sometimes. Some of them were dead in pieces. And so they were put in black bags, and then one of my, part of my duty, in a sense I call it the duty, is that while the nurses had to do so many things, I had to, with 7 other soldiers that were assigned to me, we had to take those bodies out and place them so that they were of the same color, you might say. The light brown, the black, you know, because some of them just came all packed up in one bag. I'm sorry. No,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, I don't know.
Shut the door.
I'm sorry. No, I'll get over this. I'll get over
Okay.
it. I'll get over it. I'm sorry, you turn off the thing.
I can turn it off, but you want me
Please,
to?
because I don't want to be showing like this. Let me say to you that what I'm telling you, to finish what I was saying, is that the guy that was there saw her and he said, oh my God, I am in heaven. Are you my angel? Oh, and she said, I am Lieutenant so and so, and she hold his hand, and she kissed it. She went like this, and he said, oh God, oh, I am doing okay, isn't it, dear Lord? And he died. And of course, she cried. I cried and cried and cried, and I saw her doing that. And then, you know, this wonderful nurse that was one of the in charge of triage, Beth Tate, I remember her, was so extraordinarily heroic. The nurses were the most incredible human beings anyone can ever see in a combat zone area like that. It was just awesome what they did. And awesome was, let me tell you, all of this could happen in one day, and it happened. We had a Japanese-American neurosurgeon with us, Dr. Tanabe. Dr. Tanabe in front of me, and with Beth Tate, he got a Vietnamese soldier who arrived with everybody else wounded. Vietnamese soldier, I'm talking the ones that were trying to help us. I'm not the North Vietnamese, but the South Vietnamese soldier, with his brain out of his head. Dr. Tanabe so quietly, in the middle of China Beach, you might say, right, with all the sun and all that, says to Beth, go and get me some syringe or something, let's just clean out. And just very quietly, they sat there and they started cleaning this brain sticking out. His eyes were blocked back that way, and they were so quietly cleaning all this. And he shoves it in back there, and he said, let's take him to surgery. Do you know something? Then it was my turn to rehabilitate him. He lived, he walked with a cane, and he was one of those who helped me in the Vietnamese military hospital when I went there, because I did need to go there also, by the way, to treat and see Vietnamese patients, soldiers there, and teach how to teach the Vietnamese what to do with some of them. And he with his cane will come to help me translate and help me with that. Now take that. That to me is the most incredible thing. There was no way that he could be so, I just could not believe what that man did. And I myself, when I saw him, I said, this is another God's gift. Dr. Tanabe got sick with cirrhosis and all that, but nevertheless, he continued to do surgery until one time he just could not make it anymore, and he almost dropped dead. And then they left him there. But all I am saying is that what I saw doctors do too there were beyond. It was hard to describe, and I'm sure it happens in every battlefield, it happens in every war, that we go beyond what we think is our potential. It's almost like we have the human spirit. As a matter of fact, I visited the World War II Memorial, and I think it was General MacArthur or somebody who said that in war, in battlefront and all, human being goes beyond the spirit, and you do your best because the most of you is there, or so. I don't know, it's a beautiful statement, and it applies to what I'm trying to tell you. It was heroic, and the nurses was incredibly heroic, and so...
Did they treat you with equal respect as a physical therapist?
Oh yes, very much so. No, first of all, it's not that I am proud to say, but our Corps, I'm talking about all the PTs in our Corps. I think we're very well trained. So we deserve respect. We do what we need to do, and I established the rehab program and all that, and therefore it was when I established it, and it was the concert hall where the PX was, or the so-called PX was, it became a very incredibly, they needed it actually. It was needed. So no, it was very much a part. The only time I had a time with the nurses is trying to find a place that I could call my own, because they wanted first the nurses to take it before I do, but that's no big deal.
I'm going to read this to you. This is from a letter you wrote in January of 1970, just to jog your memory. You said, first of all, being the first one assigned here, there's no place for a PT clinic, and as things are right now, there's not a way to do so. I wish you could see what I use for an office. My whirlpool is in a latrine, and somebody forgot to clean it some months ago, and they lost the key to the door. So the door's been locked, and nobody knows for how long. So it sounds like you had to make your own operation.
Oh my God, yes. Oh yeah. I started that way. And then the thing is, since there was no thing, I used a knife. That was why I had a knife. It was to open the door. And then, to top it all off, I don't even, I really believe, now I need to insert some religious aspect of it. I really believe that you have to have faith and believe there is a power beyond you, that you need to ask that power, whatever you want to call it, God or whatever, to come down and help you, because you get to a point where you don't know how this is going to happen. It gets to the point where you wonder, how, my God, this is impossible. What's going to happen? I can't do it. And then seeing all the meat, it was incredible, the push and shove. Yeah.
So tell me, what, in your opinion, what was the most popular injury that you treated? And
I don't want to call it popular. I don't think
frequent,
the most frequent, because none of them were popular. We had a lot of brain injuries. We had tremendous amount of amputations, limbs gone, tremendous infections, amputees cut off below the knee, a lot of them above the knee, bilateral amputations, both legs and arms gone, like McClellan, the secretary, one of the senators that was in a wheelchair. It was bilateral. He got it out in Vietnam with all the arms out. And so we had a lot of those, and I have to say that let me just say, there was quite a bit of orthopedic, most of it orthopedic, and quite a few more neurological patients, neurosurgical patients. The rest of them were all of them were associated, because the sprains were all orthopedic, but we did most of that, and this is why let me say that, you see, when the Vietnam Women's Memorial was inaugurated, all of us that were in Vietnam were divided in units, and we marched through the Constitution Avenue, I think it was, to the memorial. And let me tell you something, and at this I like to also be sure that it's incredible. When the nurses that I remember seeing, I was so happy to see them all. We were all in front there, and married also already with kids and all that. Of course, we talked and all that, that's how I know. And that lieutenant that I told you about, looking now much older and all that, what is so interesting is between us, here comes this guy in crutches. And he wanted to march with us. And his sister came with him, and they allowed him to march with us and the sister to the memorial. And then he said, you know, you don't remember me, but listen, Major Sanchez, at that time I was a major, and I mean, in Vietnam. And he said, Major Sanchez, or if you got promoted, Colonel Sanchez, whatever, you remember me, you know, I almost lost my foot, and now I'm walking with a cane because it's a long march, but I can walk without them. And I am grateful to you first, and then the orthopedic surgeons came and hold the leg, but you clean it and all that. It was horrendous for me, but here I am, I didn't lose the leg. I have it, but you see, part of it is artificial, and I said, I understand. And he said, well, I needed to march with you because the nurses here and all of you saved my life. And then his sister said something that I was completely again shocked. She said to me, do you know, I want you to all know this, that my mother, ever since, every day of her life since then, at noontime, she prays and hopes and prays for all of you, wishing that you have a happy life. Can you imagine? You see, we don't know those things. You just don't know, because you don't know how much you have influenced somebody's life. It's just almost unbelievable until you meet them again. You know, and then all of a sudden, as we pass by, here is this guy sitting at the edge of the road. Sitting, and when he saw me, Major Sanchez, please come on here. And I go, he was a bilateral amputee. He told me, he said, I live in California, and I was hoping I would see you, for heaven's sake. You see me, you remember me, right? Of course, I have to say, yes, I remember, you know. And I said, of course I do. And he said, you remember how it was? I was so infected, it was horrible, didn't it? It smelled awful, didn't it? And I said, well, yeah, but you got, look at you. And she said, and I got prosthesis, and I have a band that they gave me, the veterans gave me, but, you know, I prefer to just sit in the chair, you know, because, and all that, but I walk. I walk with crutches and all that, you know that, and I owe to you, oh my goodness, the same thing. This is a guy sitting like everybody else. There were a line of people watching us doing that. And there he was sitting by the edge of the curb, of the sidewalk, yelling and hoping that he would have seen me. Well, you know, these things are never, you cannot pay, I don't know how to explain that to you. But what an incredible feeling it is, you know, to know that. So there.
Before, I mean, I suspected that, but before really talking with you, I didn't realize how important psychology was to therapy.
Oh, well.
Tell me how you handled the emotion. How did you cope? How did you handle, what did you tell the soldiers to just make them keep working? Was there a secret for that?
The secret for that was, you know, I think the secret for that is what you do even in hospitals in here, in every place you go and treat people. The most important thing is that you're treating an individual. That individual is different from that one, even though it has a broken bone, exactly the same bone as the one that it has in here. But they're two different people. And you need to show first, and most important, that you care immensely about them, that you really care about their well-being, that you really care for them to feel the hope and faith of knowing that there is a better life coming. And you need to show it in the way you treat, the way you talk to them, the way you care, talk about their interest, What are you planning to do instead of saying, I don't know? What do you think you're going to do when you get back to the States, or what you've been doing, you know? And this kind of thing gets going, you know, and as a result of that, I think that really is, to me, and I am saying that because I have told that to physical therapy students, it's not only techniques, it's not only technology, it's to know that he or she there is a human being with the same hopes, the same feelings, the same wanting of love that you do. And if you do get into that kind of feeling, you communicate with that person. And therefore, by the time you start treating, he already feels that you're going to help him. And perhaps your techniques don't have to be, of course it's nice to apply the technique, but if you start with techniques, lift the leg over, do whatever you do, without really knowing who you are doing, just looking at it as a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, then you have it lost. And I have applied that to all my life, but by the way, that goes because of my parents. And so I did it with them, and I still do it. I am still a PT, I still work.
Well, on a practical level, you wrote lots of letters, but what else did you do to keep yourself sane?
Well, the first thing is, you're talking about things, we need each other. We need people each other. And like, for example, I met a pilot that was very lonely. Well, then we got to talking about pilot and about what he did, aircraft. He was one of those that would bring in dust off and all that. We became very good friends, and we would go socially dancing and all that, and believe me, it wasn't a matter of sex or sexing, it was a matter of being friends. And it was a great help, so that was one thing. Other thing is that CORDS, C-O-R-D-S, the civilian organization, American, that was sent there, had a lot of going parties that they were kind enough to invite the military to join them in the middle of Da Nang. This is now the city of Da Nang. And sometimes we were able to go when everything was not, when we thought that might be safe enough to go. Other times we just could not go because we were confined because of the fact that they were going to attack, and we were in red alarm or yellow alarm. Well, in red alarm, forget it, we were in bunkers then. But when things seemed to be quiet, let's just hope we call it that way, we went to some of these parties, and it was a ball, it was a lot of fun. And then there was a madame, Vietnamese madame, I want you to know, a Vietnamese madame who had a home with a lot of trees, almost protected the tree, that was a very lovely home in the middle of nowhere in Da Nang. My God, with all this war going on and all the horrible things, there she lives in this beautiful, lovely home with a dress with kimonos or whatever you want. They're not called kimonos. There is a name for the Vietnamese dress, and I forgot, I'm sorry, you can find out. What was it? Anyway. There is a picture of one friend of mine with them on. But anyway, she dressed up, and somehow or other, where did she get all the stuff? I don't know. I don't have it. Nobody knew. But she got the most biggest parties you ever imagined, and every time she did, we went. And so Madame, I think she had a name, Madame something or other. Entertain us also. She was Vietnamese. Nice. So we had our time, you know. But you see now, this is something I don't think we should tell, because I don't know whether this. See, I am not so sure.
Well,
you
want me to shut it off? We can turn it off.
I'll turn this off, and you do.
maybe if you could do a little summary of that, what you just explained. And then, I'm sorry, Nancy.
Well,
Let me, we're running out of time on this little recorder too, let me.
okay.
My name is Mary.
I'm gonna erase this one, because I've got that. Okay.
I hope I don't get into trouble with this, is what I'm
You
saying.
can't get into trouble.
I don't know.
Oh, you can't. There we go. Okay, you really, and you know what we'll do before?
Yeah.
I will give you the whole interview. I will hand it to
Okay.
you in a hard copy, and I'll
Yeah,
let you
I
take a
appreciate it.
pencil and go through it. and-
Well, I also judge, I will imagine that you will understand and you will be also kind enough to know, after seeing with other people, the other colleagues of yours, whether or not this should be publicized.
Yeah, I
You
will
know.
make that decision.
Yeah, but I mean, I like to see it, of course, but let me tell you what it is this is our President of the United States.
Yeah.
And if you understand my position, I am trying to tell you first how stressful it was, what I have gone through. And it's not that I'm playing my violin, it was the pragmatical, the realistic aspect of life is that I have been coming from Cambodia, troops, Marines were being wounded in Laos. The 95th Evac was packed with wounded, and a lot of them from Laos. And then for me to turn my little news radio, all excited about this, about getting a little news radio and listen to the voice of America. And the first thing I hear is the President of the United States, President Nixon, telling the American public, and this is, I never will forget it, you can rest assured that we do not have any troops in Laos, that we do not have any, listen, do you know that it hurt me so immensely to know that there were so critically wounded Marines in our compound from Laos, and me being part of what I seen because I was coming from that area. I took that poor radio, I threw it against my hutch floor, which was wood, and of course I was the one who had a problem because I did not have a radio anymore. I smashed it in pieces. So I was the one who lost.
I don't blame you, I don't blame you.
So, you know, what I am saying is, why did he ever say that to me? But I live with that. I tell you, I live with that forever. I said, I just don't believe that our commanding officer is denying this is the way I myself determined that that's how I felt it. I felt that he was actually denying our existence. But you know, I have to add something else. When you ask the Marines, they have been told that they were not to say that they fought in Laos. And so every time you ask a Marine, they say, no, we didn't fight in Laos. No, we didn't get, and I said, come on. Well, you know, Major, look, here is this little lake river in here. How do you know if you're going to be fighting in Vietnam or if you're going to fight in Laos? I don't know, we don't know. We are thinking that we're fighting in Vietnam. That's what the way that they put it. I know that they signed a little paper that said that they were not to say that they were fighting in Laos. But that was the way they put it. Well, we kept fighting, and if we moved over there and we were in Laos, we did not know that. We wouldn't know now that we were in Laos. We were supposed to be here, but this is the river. Well, I said, you know, no, you knew you were in Laos because you cannot tell me that you knew that Laos is here and Vietnam is here and that you were fighting over there. He said, but we meant to fight in Vietnam, not in Laos. We were not, what I think they really meant to say is that they were not told that they could not fight in Laos, but that there was not a declared war, that they were actually fighting in Laos, which in fact they were, you see? And the president, instead of kind of, I don't even know, I'm beginning to wonder if he ever knew that they actually were fighting in Laos, that he had that kind of, but why did he say that so vividly? It's just, was very stupid and idiotic, I'm sorry.
No.
It was, you know. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. A lot of the stuff we talked about, a lot of my questions we've discussed without even having to ask them. But this
Yeah.
might perhaps be
Yeah.
the most difficult question for you, and that is, do you have a most memorable patient? Someone who that you remember today and that you think about? And I mean, you have had a lot of people coming and going from your life since this experience, but
You know,
is there someone-
it's very interesting you ask this question. First of all, I did give you example of different people that I saw, that I personally, at the time when they presented themselves now in real life, now at this time in 2004, because it's not with the Vietnam Memorial, those two other ones was when the Vietnam Women Memorial was inaugurated here in Washington. But the example of the Trenton man, for example, the Peach Festival man, I cannot say that I had a memorable special patient because there were too many of them that were memorable. The human aspect of life, believe it or not, in the worst possible situation, comes alive. It's no longer material thing. It's no longer how you're dressed and how you're thinking. It's the human spirit that shows, even with the wounded. And I admire deeply each and every one of those soldiers because that was one thing that was utmost in their character, the human spirit. And they were so incredibly not only poised, there was a beauty about how they accepted their fate. That therefore, for me, it was not just one soldier. It was a matter of every patient that I treated there, and God knows that I saw many amputees, many brain injuries, many spinal cord injuries, and I cannot pinpoint. Here are all these other soldiers that I mentioned to you that I have seen 30 years later, remembering that kind of life, and because of the fact that I saw so many, I cannot say that I remember them all, but I do remember as a whole the incredible people that they were. So that is hard for me to tell you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've read about Diane Lindsay, who restrained, she was the Army nurse at the 95th that restrained the crazy patient that had pulled the pin out of a grenade. She was, I think, the first African-American woman to win, to earn, so it was a very special medal, and I can't believe I'm blanking on it.
To earn
It was,
what is it called, the Purple Heart?
It wasn't a Purple Heart, but it was a very prestigious medal.
Yeah.
And my question is, at any point while you were there, did the 95th sustain bombing raids or combat injuries, or did anyone you know that you worked with sustain combat-related injuries?
The one that sustained combat-related injuries and died was that her name is written now in the Vietnam. Was in the area, and but I never did meet her. Mm-hmm. I never did meet her, but I don't remember in our unit having anyone, thank God, having a combat-related injury. No.
And I have some photos that beg the question. How did it feel to work with the Vietnamese children? And we haven't talked about that process.
Well, let me tell you something. The first thing, and I like to bring out, there was a civilian physical therapist at the rehabilitation centers in Da Nang that came with the Vietnam Christian Mission. One of them was Thelma Mo, and the other one was Doris Dove, D-O-V-E. Doris was the one who badly needed, because she came in when the ward became more, it grew very fast, and there was a tremendous amount of casualty among the civilian Vietnamese, and she was working as the director, PT director. So it got to the point that were many children being harmed, one of my duties as a PT at the 95th Evac, believe it or not, was to go whenever I was possible to help with the Vietnamese community in civilian hospital and the military hospital. And I did that in between all the rest of the stuff that I did. And so I helped her, but she also helped me, by the way, in terms of when I went to the military hospital, she spoke Vietnamese, she was taught Vietnamese with the Vietnam Christian Mission. So she would come and help me also with the soldiers in military hospital. But I also came and helped her in the rehab centers, and you will see it in pictures there. And we both treated children that were in hospitals, and let me tell you, some of them were actually, their fingers and their fingers were cut off by rats. Rats actually came and grabbed their hands and fingers, and that is how bad it was. And by the time in the morning we came, might be, well, the doctor, which was one I never forget, but they were wrapped in a peculiar way and all that, but their arms were off, and you don't have any idea. And they were all lying on the floor. There are so many. Kids, I'm talking about young kids, from 1 to 7, 6, 5 years old. And so, what did I do? Yes, I work hard with them. I work in the mat. If you see pictures, you'll see them. You see me in the rehab program with them. So the civilian PTs there, especially Doris Dove, I worked very much in conjunction with them, and I was glad that there was an American PT in civilian life there, because it certainly was a tremendous help. Also, like, talking from a colleague to another colleague, and it was really, thank God for that. And so we had a good relationship, and I think we helped each other. I did help not a lot. She was incredible in the rehab center, and I can say that we both worked very hard with children and teenagers, Vietnamese teenagers. So I would say that was part of my job. I call it that was part of my job, and thank God my CEO felt very happy that I did it.
And this is something I neglected to ask you. In your letters, you mentioned two major problems, drug abuse and black market.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit, give me some examples or situations?
Well, the thing about it, and I don't know whether, we had Vietnamese people helping us in our hooches. We called them Mama San and Papa Sans. And somehow or other, when we needed linen that needed to be gone to the soldier, whether it was the privates or whoever it was, they will sell them in the black market to get money. And so it was horrendous, because then we did not have it for the wounded and for the GIs and all that. But that was an ongoing thing. It was, I don't know, how do you call Katie or Kathy?
Kate. Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah.
Kate or Katie?
Kate.
Kate.
Yeah.
Well, Kate, I tell you the truth. I don't know whether it was that what is that way. There are just so many questions. All I know is that we had a horrible problem. Stealing was a horrible problem. But let me tell you something else, and here we go again. Some of our GIs, we all come from different walks of life. Let me just say that. We all come from different walks of life. We have different ways of morals, if some of us don't have any, regardless. And one of the things that happened there is that the GIs start selling the Vietnamese the helicopter oil, the one that is used for motor oil, for them to fry their food in that type of oil. You could imagine what happened. Some of them didn't die, but some of them became neurologically involved. Out of the fact, could you imagine frying things out of a motor oil of helicopters? But this is the thing that some GIs were stupid enough to do. And I am sorry to say that. And I saw one, they became very, neurologically involved. They became paralyzed, if not with certain tremors and all that, until I don't know how one of our doctors just started investigating. And
So they were using this motor oil to...
They were
was
selling...
they getting a high on it, or was it...
No, they were not getting a high. It's that the GIs either traded it for heroin, for drugs.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the poor Vietnamese did not have any oil, nothing to cook.
I see.
So, you see, they would bring this oil and say, this is good for cooking, this is good oil. And then they would give them the marijuana or whatever it is, and the poor Vietnamese would believe them. So they would fry some of their food in that. And of course, that was actually deadly, really. If it's not deadly, they will become neurologically somehow involved, or even lose their brain capacity. But this was something that was happening. The other thing, let me tell you the other side of the story. One time I had to go to the 66 unit. It was a 66 field unit that was in some place that they were closing the little clinic, their hospital, and they told me there was some equipment that we could use in a 95th evac. So Colonel Caulfield, the famous Colonel Caulfield, me, an NCOIC sergeant that happened to be from Puerto Rico himself, the sergeant, in the Jeep, we start going over there with our flak jacket to get the equipment and see what things we're doing, that we could, not only that equipment, but any other thing that we could use in the 95th evac. And we get there, it was early in the morning, and we were to stay overnight somewhere, or just stay whatever we can do. We did not know what was going to happen, because we never knew who was going to be throwing rockets or whatever. So we go there to the Jeep, and we felt, there was a field unit coming back from battle. They were coming back in their, what do you call the tanks, those tanks with their big belt, all that. And they were coming that way, and we were right, as a matter of fact, I saw in the New York Times, the cathedral that we were next to it, completely demolished by bombs later on. But anyway, we were in that area of the cathedral, and we waited for the field unit to come in. So we came in, we stayed there, and then we started going toward the beach. They were coming this way like that, and all of a sudden, this guy that I took the picture, very handsome young man, right in front of the tank, looked at me again, and he said, "Oh my goodness, the first lady I see for many weeks." And I said, well, he was bare. He didn't have anything on except his pants. It was very hot. And he was just completely, no t-shirt, no nothing, like we do in summertime, red as a bacon, out of the sun. And he was saying, and he said, "When do you de-rose?" De-rose meant, when do you rotate back to the States? And that's the name of it, de-rose. And I said, I just came in almost, and so I have another year to go. And he said, "I got 3 more days, and I'm getting out of here. Isn't that something? I feel sorry for you." And I said, "Well, isn't that great? That's wonderful." And I took this picture. So we go back to the Jeep, and we sat there, and all of a sudden we hear this incredible bomb explosion. But I mean, it was horrendous. The colonel and the sergeant said to me, get down, because the most for sure they thought, well, there's a bomb coming down. So, Major Sanchez, get down. And they start running down back to the field. Each and every one of those were in pieces. Somebody has placed a mine around that route. And that poor boy, who was 3 days to go to the Rose, was in pieces. And the sergeant and Colonel Caulfield and John Caulfield came. They both were crying. I grabbed them both in my shoulders, and I cried with them, and I hugged them, and they cry, and it's just like they have lost the whole family, and they just cry, and they never met, it's just to see. And then they finally settled down, and I run, and he says, "Don't go there, you're going to get killed." No, I don't care. Even if they tell me no, not even the colonel would. I had to go. I just couldn't. I just wanted to see if that boy was alive, only to find him in pieces. His arm is, oh, God, help me. Well, the picture that I took was his last real picture.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
He's in there.
I saw him. I saw him.
Did you see him like he was
So
talking?
happy.
Like he was talking, that's the man. He never made it out of that little sand there. And you know what? Let me tell you something. You know who put all that mine and all that killed 65 GI, not him only, 65 that were coming out of the field, that finished the battle. A pregnant, very pregnant little Vietnamese lady, pregnant, who broke her femur, and she was there back to the 95th evac, and we put her in the POW ward. We call it the prisoner of war, POW ward. And I went there to see her because I needed to treat her. And then one of the special forces sergeants was in the guard there. And I came close to her. I felt like saying, why, killing all these people. But anyway, she grabbed my neck. Like that, just like she wanted to kill me. Well, the special force guy spoke Vietnamese. They're very good. The special forces are all for that thing. But with his knuckle, he went as hard as he could. He was so mad that he actually cracked her lip and all that. And here she was in traction, and I just had to stop him because it was something like, you see, just to show you. Now, he was so infuriated, and he wanted to get rid of that. He just wanted to almost kill her. And so I had to stop it. I said, Sergeant, stop, please, stop, and I said, stop it. And he said, she was trying to kill you, and look what she did. And I said, I know, I am aware of that, please. And he just, you know what he did? He went into a chair and just started crying too. Instead of, he just went in, put his rifle like that, and he just bawled and cry and cry and cry and cry. And I was so tired of all the crying. Anyway, so I said to another person, whoever spoke Vietnamese, I need to talk to this woman. And so another guy who was Vietnamese and was in that ward helping came, and she just went like this. And I tried to see what I could do to help her. And, later on she softened. She softened. She even later on started saying, when like this, every time I would come to see her, she'll go with her head. Well, anyway. But you see, how was anyone to know that a pregnant lady, so thin, she was like this, could have put that much, and she said she did, and like she was, we saw her there, and then she rubbed that, and there she was with a cracked bone that was almost out of her thigh, the femur. Now you can imagine that. You could imagine that. This is why sometimes I don't understand the old cruelty, but you see right now in Vietnam, the business of my lie, that this lieutenant was so horrible to do what he did. But at the same token, look at what happened. This is a woman, would you ever imagine seeing a little lady with this pregnant, as thin as a rail, being able to do that? No, I would not have thought of that. I just could not. They taught her. She was a Viet Cong. She did it. So nobody knew where the enemy was, is what it meant to. Anyway, that was the end of that.
Nancy, do you believe that you have post-traumatic stress disorder? Or do you think
they tried to tell me that. But I tell you, when I came back from Vietnam, Kate, I was in Interstate 20 going from Augusta to Atlanta, and it was the first time I realized something was wrong, because I was driving my car and a helicopter passed by me, and I just got rigid, and I tried my best to put in the accelerator because I was in an interstate. I was in I-20, and I had a heck of a time driving my car. And so all of a sudden I said there was something wrong with this. So I decided, I was assigned to Eisenhower then, to Dwight David Eisenhower. This is my last duty station, I forgot to put that in there, didn't
Oh,
I?
we got it.
Dwight David Eisenhower Medical Center?
Oh, no, we don't.
No, that was the last one.
All right.
Anyway, at Fort Gordon, Augusta, Georgia, just to be sure that it's not Atlanta or anything else.
Sure.
Anyway, that was my last duty station, and that's where I retired, and I was the chief of the physical therapy department at Eisenhower when I retired. Anyway, and this is, anyway, what I'm saying to you is that when I came back, I decided I'd go to the 8th floor of the hospital. Here, I had a degree in psychology, but this is why I kind of thought, this is something peculiar. So I talked to one of the psychiatrists, but you know why most of all did not want to say anything about it during active duty? Because we didn't want it in our records. Why? Because it included, it's a silly thing, it's promotion, all of that, if they show that, and so, but the psychiatrists were nice, they said, there's not going to be in there, so you just talk, just tell us. Well, he said, that will get over it, you'll get over it. And you know, I was only not even a year coming from Vietnam, and it did alleviate it itself, but I have to tell you something. I have never gotten over having some vivid pictures of things that were horrendous. I still, lots of it come back, especially with this Iraq business. I have a heck of a time. I can see blood and I can see scenes, and that is because of the background of my head in here or something. I don't like to see any of that stuff. It makes me, but no, they wanted in the VA, they wanted me to join a post-traumatic, and I said, I don't have it. I really don't have it. I don't think I do, really, at all, except at that occasion, but it was very close to the time when I came back.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist told me that. They said, listen, it will ease up. Just give it a time. It will ease up. And it did. It did. I see a helicopter and I ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and I, you know, but it's not a matter that I get turns or something, no.
And tell me, and maybe this might be a good, I don't know, is there anything we should cover that I haven't covered? I feel like I'm wearing you out.
No, it's just that there is so much, you know, I'm glad I wrote those diaries. There is a lot of things that I still can tell you. Some of them are funny and all that, but the main crux of the thing, the establishment of the clinic, you know that about it, you know. The Marines were involved with that. The Vietnamese helped make the stairs to help the amputee with the help of the Marines, and so on. It's just that it was a matter of haphazard, well, not haphazard, but times where you just had to wait for the next minute to see what could be happening or what could be done. You live from one second to the other, so there's a lot of things that will remain with you that I'm sure that never will come out. I'm sure that will go with all the veterans that have been in combat units and all that, you know. So
I do have another question, actually.
Go.
From a personal standpoint and from a professional standpoint.
Sure.
How did Vietnam change who you are today?
How did Vietnam, I have learned, you know,